So Amazon Prime's The Boys has wrapped up its 4th season last week on Prime Video, and I was initially going to do a review for season 4 this week. That was my initial plan for this week's video. But after thinking about it a little bit, I realized that there's so many channels out there that are going to be doing reviews and have been doing reviews for so long and probably do it better than me. So I thought, why not do something a little bit different and talk about the ending of season 4 and what that actually means for the now 5th and final season of The Boys, which is now confirmed to be releasing in 2026. I mean, just to give you my quick thoughts on season 4, I liked it a lot. I thought it was a really good season. I will say, I think it's probably the weakest season of the show so far. I think there were certain storylines for certain characters like Frenchie and Kimiko, who their storyline just felt like it was lacking a little bit, like there wasn't as much agency or as importance, or it just felt like it wasn't quite the natural progression I was expecting. But generally speaking, I really liked the season. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was great entertainment. I just would probably say it was the weakest season of the 4 so far. But now going into season 5, I want to talk about some certain questions I have from the end of season 4 that I want to know what's going to happen in this season with these certain characters, with these certain storylines. I've got 5 burning questions that I want to tackle, and I'm going to go through them with you guys. So, question number 1. Where did Starlight go at the end of season 4? Now, of course, full spoilers ahead for The Boys thus far, and also for Gen V season 1. I think Starlight at the end of the season, being the one member of The Boys who basically managed to escape, outside of Billy, of course, I think is an interesting place to put the character. Given where she was throughout season 4 and where she ended up in the finale, I think the rest of the team being captured and separated and her being the one member to escape, I think puts her in a really cool position going into season 5. But the big question is, where does she go? She, of course, flies off, flies away. Where's she going to go? I do have a theory. When you think about other characters in season 4 and which other characters are just kind of out there in the wind, the other big character that comes into mind for me is A-Train. A-Train was not in the season finale. He just went. Like, he was absolutely out of there. He was gone, which is fair enough. I mean, he was definitely in a position where he was going to get killed. So, fair enough, A-Train is gone. I honestly thought A-Train was going to die this season. The fact that he managed to get out alive, I thought was pretty miraculous. But I think that Starlight is going to go and find A-Train, because their storyline going into season 5, I think is going to be these 2 kind of disgraced members of the 7 coming back to rescue the boys. That's what I'm going to suggest anyway. A-Train, of course, was flipped this season by MM. He very much flipped on the 7. He doesn't really agree with anything anymore. He is an absolute wreck and a shell of his former self. And I feel like him escaping in season 4 and Starlight escaping means that they are going to team up together to come back, take on Vought, take on the rest of the 7, and also rescue the boys at the same time. Question number 2. Now, this actually more so relates to the 2nd season of Gen V, which we're going to be getting next year. And this isn't really a question more than it is a theory or an idea, which is, will Ryan go on season 2 of Gen V? Now, this is something that came into my head when I was writing this video. I was thinking to myself, you know, Ryan is a really cool character in this show. He's obviously in a very, very interesting place, being the son of Homelander and kind of the prodigal son of Butcher, and he's kind of stuck in the middle. But he's also very, very young, of course. He's a teenager. What if he actually ended up on Gen V? I think this could be an interesting development for him, because he is obviously this character who's stuck in 2 different worlds. He's trying to do the right thing. And I think with the Gen V characters, I think that puts Ryan in this place where he can almost relate to these people and also would want to help them in a lot of ways. Obviously, from the end of Gen V Season 1, we know that the core group of characters was stuck and were captured by Vought, and then you had Sam and Kate, who were now working for Homelander, which we saw in The Boys Season 4. What if Ryan actually took kind of pity on the characters who were captured by Vought, like, you know, Marie and Emma, and actually helped them in Season 2 of Gen V to try and break them out? I think that could be a fun place for Ryan to show up, especially because in Gen V, you know, there was all these different cameos from all the characters in The Boys. It wouldn't be out of the question for another cameo like from Ryan to show up in Season 2. My next question comes from the post-credit scene from Season 4, which was the reveal of Jensen Ackles as Soldier Boy.
Guest, Soldier Boy.
Fab Five Freddy told me everybody's fly. DJ's spinning, I said my.
Now, Soldier Boy was, of course, the kind of standout character from Season 3 of The Boys, and he's now coming back, it seems, in Season 5. Now, my question here is, what role does Soldier Boy actually play in this season? Because he is obviously a big character. He had a big impact on the show, but his storyline was very much, surrounded by Season 3, and it was kind of like he was the big part of it. So the fact that he's now coming back into Season 5 in a storyline where Supes are now deputized and Homelander is essentially the president, what does that mean for Soldier Boy? Like, where does that put him? Of course, him being a man out of time, we saw how kind of out of the world he was. I'm interested to see what he actually does in Season 5, because Homelander, of course, is shown him by the president. Homelander seems like he's going to wake Soldier Boy up and is going to try and get him, I guess, back to the way he was. But of course, if you remember back to Season 3, Soldier Boy wasn't exactly a big fan of Homelander. In fact, he said,
"You're a fucking disappointment."
And that caused them to fight. So despite being father and son, they're not exactly best friends. So I think that Soldier Boy being woken up by Homelander isn't exactly going to be a happy wake up for Soldier Boy. And I'm thinking about how he can be utilized. And my own personal theory is I feel like Soldier Boy, despite being a horrendous individual, just as bad, maybe even worse than Homelander in a lot of ways, I feel like he's going to be the ace in the hole for this season in regards to how the boys actually take down Homelander. But I'm going to get to that in a little bit. My next question is to do with cast members of Season 5, and specifically one who we know is going to be in Season 5, and that is Supernatural's Jared Padalecki. Who is he going to be playing in Season 5? Now, of course, the showrunner of The Boys, Eric Kripke, is also a showrunner on Supernatural, or at least he was for a long time. And because of that, we've had a lot of different Supernatural alumni on the show. Of course, Jensen Ackles, who we just spoken about. We had Jeffrey Dean Morgan last season. And now we have Jared Padalecki coming into Season 5. And I guess the big question a lot of people have about Jared is, well, who's he going to play? Because there was no relation whatsoever between Jensen and Jeffrey's characters. Like, they were completely different. Obviously, Jeffrey's character didn't even really exist. So what's Jared going to be doing in this season? Honestly, it could be anything. You can't even really look to the comics for inspiration because The Boys just strays so far from the comics. It could be anything. But I do hope that regardless of which character Jared is playing on this show, I do hope him and Jensen actually get to have some interaction. Of course, them playing brothers on Supernatural, it'll be really fun for the fans of that show to see them on the screen together again. And I think what would be actually even cooler is, rather than them playing brothers like they did on Supernatural, if they played enemies of each other on this show, where, instead of them being close and allies, I think it'd be an interesting twist to chuck Jared into the show and maybe even have him fight Soldier Boy. That would be really cool, I think. That would be an interesting twist, a cool way to bring Jared in, make him play a cool character, definitely make him a Supe, I think, but don't necessarily make him an ally of Soldier Boy. I think that would be a more interesting way to go about it. They could potentially turn him into a character from Soldier Boy's past, maybe from the Payback days, but I think it'd be more interesting for him to play a character who is against Soldier Boy, and like I say, specifically, maybe you could have a fight scene with him. I think that would be really cool. And my final question, which I'm probably going to title the video this, is Homelander going to die? Now, this is a question that a lot of people have asked about this character in this show pretty much throughout its entire run. Is Homelander going to die? Will they ever kill off Homelander? And I think that question is becoming a real reality now in what we now know as the final season. Because I always said, well, for as long as the show's on, they won't kill Homelander because he is the face of the show. He is the most marketable, most well-known part of the entire show. Yes, he's the main villain and he's a horrendous person, but he's the face of the show. Without Homelander, there really isn't The Boys, not really. So Anthony Starr is definitely going to be a big presence in this final season, but the question is he going to die? Now, a part of me thinks, yeah, he is going to die. Of course he's going to die. They have to kill Homelander. There's no way that John makes it out of this alive. I always forget his name's John, and then every time I hear it on the show, it just creeps me out. So I'm thinking, surely, Homelander will die in this final season, right? But then I started thinking about it more and more, and there is another way they could go that I feel like is a more interesting way to dispose of Homelander in the final season. That would be removing his powers. Because when you think about Homelander as a character, like, his whole thing is that he was born a soup out of a test tube. He had all these powers and he knew the world was kind of at his feet. And he's always played it like that. He's always been like that. I think the most interesting way to end Homelander's story is to remove him and strip him of his powers. And there's got to be a way they can do this, because I think that would be the most incredible, interesting, and also funny way. Like, Anthony Starr, you just know, would play this incredibly well. This character who his entire life has been, you know, all powerful and this presence within the world, to suddenly be reduced to just a regular person. I think that, for Homelander, is a fate worse than death. But how would they kill Homelander, or how would they get rid of his powers? For me personally, I feel like there's two options they've got. Number one is the virus, of course, that Billy has at the end of the season, which came from Gen V. I feel like the virus, no matter how strong they make it, will never be strong enough to kill a soup as powerful as Homelander. I just don't think that would ever happen. But I could see it being a situation where it's strong enough to remove him of his powers. So they could go about it that way, using the virus. Obviously, how would they get the virus to Homelander? We don't really know. I know a lot of people suggested maybe injecting it into Firecracker and then getting Firecracker to supply Homelander with it, if you know what I mean. Or there is another way which I feel like could be interesting as well. Of course, with Soldier Boy being in the final season and him having the power of that EMP blast that we saw at the end of season 3, they could use that as a way to depower Homelander. That could be another way to go about it. And I feel like Soldier Boy would be willing to do that, because he's obviously at a point in his life where he's not really living anymore anyway. And I feel like his kind of final day on the earth, he'd be quite happy using his powers to eventually kill himself to kill Homelander, or at least to remove him of his powers. I feel like that would be a really good end for Soldier Boy's character, and very much in character for him as well. But speaking of character deaths, even though I don't think Homelander's going to die, I think there's a very strong possibility that Billy Butcher might die in this final season. I don't really know how. I haven't really got a full theory of how that's going to happen, but for me personally, when I'm looking at the characters in this show and who's going to make it out alive, I think Homelander has a stronger chance of surviving than Butcher does. But maybe that's another topic for another video. But they are my 5 burning questions going into The Boys Season 5. What do you think? And let me know your answers in the comment section down below. How do you feel like the topics we talked about are going to play out in this final season? And let me know your own questions and theories about Season 5 in the comment section down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I love The Boys. I love talking about it. So let's have a conversation in the comment section down below. And as always, guys, if you want to see more content just like this, make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any uploads from me and don't miss out on the rambling. And I hope to see you guys again next time.